Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're talking about the final issue of The Walking Dead, issue number 193. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent Casina, and today we're going to talk about The Walking Dead final issue, number 193, as I talked about earlier, the surprise final issue of The Walking Dead. Now, I realize it's been a little while since I'd done a video. Life's been busy. I still have not seen Spider-Man Far From Home yet. I think we're going to go on Friday, and I've maintained to be spoiler-free so far, so that's pretty good. Apparently, there's some major stuff going on in that movie, so we will cover that this weekend. I was reading Batman Odyssey by Neil Adams and thinking about doing a video on that because it was just like the most crazy Batman story I've ever read. But then when I finished it, it was a big slog, and it was also the worst Batman story I have ever read. So if you're a Neil Adams fan, go buy it for the art, I guess, if you like his new art style. Mainly I bought it because I was like wanting to know what the big deal was. I know he's a legendary artist, whatever, but recently, and like at MegaCon that I went to, he wanted $50 to get a signature from him. $50. Now I know everybody's got to make their money, but this guy had the biggest artist booth of the entire con. He had like 4 booth sizes with prints and all this stuff, and all of them looked really nice, but they were also very expensive. So when I wanted my Action Comics or Detective Comics 1000 signed by him, $50 for one signature, I said no thanks, and I'll see you later. But I did pick up this issue from Comixology for the cheap on some sale someday, and I read it, and it was the most nonsensical, difficult thing to read I have ever read. And I think it was like 13 issues long. It was really long, guys. So I decided to put that down and not do a video on that, and we're going to talk about The Walking Dead instead. Why talk about something you hate when you can talk about something that you liked? So that's what we're doing. You may notice there's an update in the video quality. Not really, but the sound is better. I got a little mic. I'm wearing it under my shirt here. And this is actually the second time I'm doing this video because the first time I wore it on my collar with the little lav pin, and the sound was like so loud. You guys would have been yelling at me for as long as I talked. So I'm going to try and condense the talking down a little bit, and I lower the microphone so that level should be good too. So here's hoping that works. So let's talk about The Walking Dead. This is a book that's been going on since, this is copyright 2006, so at least 2005 maybe. It was originated by Robert Kirkman. The first 6 issues were drawn by Tony Moore, so he's listed as he's not as creator, but you know, he's credited as co-creating the series with Robert Kirkman, even though it's basically Kirkman's baby. But in these first 6 issues, he did the pencils, inks, and gray tones. So he kind of set the stage for what The Walking Dead should look like. So if you haven't read this first trade paperback, I recommend you read it. And you owe it to yourself to read it if you have enjoyed the TV series, if you've enjoyed any of the other issues, if you like zombies whatsoever. It's a great take, and it's a great first 6 issues. You will notice reading these 6 issues that the TV show departed from the series and stuff like that in these first 6 issues, only a little bit. Basically, Shane. I think it was a good change, but definitely don't get used to this style of art. You know, Tony Moore is a very detailed artist. He does a great job with facial expressions and detail. And when you open up one of these pages to these books, it's super detailed. The zombies are super gory, and he uses like gray tones, almost like looking at this book, you would think that maybe this book was colored first, and then black and whited, because there is that much of a separation between all the gray tones, which is really nice to look at in the end. But this is not what The Walking Dead has been for the last 187, 86 issues. Instead, The Walking Dead has been drawn by Charlie Adlard, who jumped on with issue number 7 and has done every issue since then. The pencils, sometimes the inks. They've always had Cliff Rathburn do the gray tones, and that's been the consistent look of The Walking Dead. And never in reading, I'm holding Compendium 1 here, never in reading those issues did you ever think that maybe it was colorized like ever again. The gray tones became much more simpler, and I think it was to aid the fact that Tony Moore, while a great artist, probably took his time on those issues. A lot of time was spent on them. And judging by the work he's done since that book came out in 2006, 2005, he hasn't been able to stay with the book very long. And I think the longest thing that I've read from him, he does Fear Agent, so that's his own thing. So I don't know if you want to count that or not, like as a paycheck gig kind of thing. But I think the Venom run he had with Agent Venom was the longest thing I've ever seen him on since then. And that's all very good stuff. I'm a big fan of Tony Moore. I think he's a great artist. But to churn this out month to month to month, I guess he was unable to do that. And it turned over to the second artist on the book and the last artist on the book, and that is Charlie Adlard. It's kind of interesting for Kirkman's two main books that are now over, with Walking Dead and the other being Invincible, that they launched with an initial artist and then found their footing in the second artist that took over, and that second guy ran with it all the way to the end. So for Invincible, you had, I think it was Corey Walker or Kev Walker. There are two different artists named Walker in comics, Corey and Kev. Not sure which one, sorry about that. But anyway, the initial artist for Invincible, Walker, did like the first 12 issues, and that was a very simplistic style and stuff like that. Then with like, I think it was 13, with Invincible, you got Ryan Ottley, who's currently knocking it out of the park on Amazing Spider-Man, and he did every issue after that, like 100 issues or more on Invincible with Robert Kirkman. And you had the same thing here, where you had Charlie Adlard jump on with issue number 7 and stayed on every issue since then. So this is Compendium 1. This is issues 1 through 48. So after I'd seen like the TV show, and I think I picked up the first trade, and then I liked it, and I liked the TV show, so I said, let me read some more, and this was available, so I picked this up. This is Compendium 1, it's issues 1 through 48, like I said earlier. And this goes through all of the Governor stuff and pretty much ends with the Governor saga right there. So again, if you really like the first 3 to 4 seasons of The Walking Dead, go ahead and pick this bad boy up. You will not regret it. It's a great read. It's one thing about Kirkman is he's pretty consistent. He's never always up, never always down. He's always kind of in the middle, and with highs and lows, and but the lows are never too low enough that you're like, I'm putting this book down, I'm never going to read it again, that type of thing. So once this ended, I wanted more. And I don't know if I waited a little bit or if it was already available, but I went ahead and picked up Compendium 2, this bad boy over here, and this is issues 49 through 96 of The Walking Dead. It's here on the back. I'm not memorizing that at all. So they have these in like 48 issue arcs. This again, all Robert Kirkman, Charlie Adlard, Cliff Rathburn. Those are your three main guys on The Walking Dead. And I describe Charlie Adlard's artwork as workman-like. It's not super awesome, as opposed to like Jim Lee or Adam and Comfort over here to my left, or who else we got? A couple of Bart Sears and a couple of these other guys up here. That's Rob Hunter inked those. I picked those prints up from him. So he's not super detailed, but he doesn't have to be. It's a real-world story, but he gets the job done. He does a good job. Everything is, the story comes first as opposed to detail or art or like a wow factor. In fact, here's a double page spread from Compendium 2. It's not spoiling anything. It's just a bunch of zombies. But if you had looked at the Volume 1 pages of the zombies from Tony Moore, compared to these, you would definitely notice the difference in detail. It was almost this very heavy on blacks. As opposed to Tony Moore, who was, more like pencil and regular comic art, and then the gray tones were very colorized. This is definitely drawn with the black and white version in mind. They use black a lot in this book to great effect sometimes, which is excellent. And that means you're in the hands of an excellent artist and an excellent writer when you get that effect. If you can do a book in black and white and not have color and still have emotional moments, and eliminate, however many thousands of colors they can print now, and just have black, white, and gray, you've got a great team on your hands and a great artist. So this goes all the way up to issue 96. Negan does not even appear in this second compendium. I realized that the last time I did this video, I was talking about it as if it was in here, and then I realized he's not. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in here that's just as interesting. So when I finished this, I was already well into my digital comic stuff on my iPad, so I went issue 97 all the way to the end here on my iPad with The Walking Dead, reading it digitally, and I can say it's been a ride, and it definitely is nice to read comics on the iPad. I'm a big proponent of it. Number one, you don't have to store anything of it. I don't have a lot of trades compared to a lot of other people. I keep the stuff I really, really like, or pick up stuff that I really, really like in trade, because my space is limited. You know, I got kids and other stuff that I want to keep around rather than a bunch of comic books. But that might change. We'll see. If I can get rid of some of these DVDs on the other side of the camera, I might have more shelf space for comic books. But that's a different video for a different day. So, Walking Dead, that's basically your primer on the series. There is a third compendium out there. I don't have it. I bet there will be a fourth. In the back matter of this last issue, they were talking about how the compendiums are a really good selling format for them. And there will be a fourth compendium, and that each compendium is 48 issues, and it just worked out that way. Like 6 issues, like story arc makes, you know, so many of these trades make a compendium. So that is nice. So there's a lot of different ways you can read The Walking Dead. You can read it digitally. You can pick up these compendiums, which is a pretty good deal. You can get each one for like $50, I think, if you don't find them at a discount. That's the regular price. This is about like $1 an issue, which is a pretty good price, about as cheap as you can get it on Comixology whenever they have a sale. They do have a sale running right now. If you want to go pick up the entire series, you can buy them all digitally and get it that way. But let's talk about this last issue. I think it was a great issue. I really, really liked it. I think it was a good way to end a series in a year that have had a lot of series endings that people did not like. You know, I can't remember the one that was before Game of Thrones. Well, I guess you had Avengers Endgame, kind of an ending that everyone liked, but then you had Game of Thrones, which is a season nobody really liked. Me and Jim liked the final episode. We were talking about that here, but a lot of people did not. So this is, I guess, a way to end a series without pleasing a whole bunch of people or making a whole bunch of people mad, because this issue jumps in time like 25 years or so. There's a big time jump here, and you find Carl all grown up. He's married to one of the characters from the last couple issues. He's got a kid named after a character from issues way away. It's big callbacks, lots of callbacks here. So if you're a fan of the series and you've read every issue up until then, or even if you've only read like the first compendium or two, you can pick up this issue and read the ending of The Walking Dead, the ending of the world, the story, and get a good feeling and not feel like you've missed a lot because of that big time jump. And I feel like that was a good strategy for Kirkman to go, because in the last issue it ended with everybody going on a big caravan to take Rick's body to Alexandria, I think, to be buried. And I felt like when that ended, we were going to get another couple issues of the funeral, and then maybe the series was going to continue for a lot longer. In my honest opinion, I thought that Kirkman was going to go for that magic 300 number. And so in independent comics, if you're not Marvel, you're not DC, the longest running independently published comic book has been Cerebus. And that started in the 80s, drawn by Dave Sim, and Gerhard did some other art in there. I've never read it, but it is somewhat revered, but the creator, like, as times have changed, he's kind of gotten a bad rap in terms of his political views or whatever. So I haven't read it. It's about an aardvark. Not really interested. Maybe someday. But that 300 number has been the longest running independent comic book. Now, Spawn is about to hit that number. And Todd McFarlane's pumping up Spawn and stuff, but Todd hasn't really, he hasn't written every issue, he hasn't drawn on every issue, he hasn't inked every issue. It's just been kind of like overseen by him for every issue, as like the editor, and he's been writing it the last couple of issues. I'm not a regular reader of Spawn. I did read the first 6, 6 times 20, whatever through issue 120. When those trades were coming out when I was in college, those big thick ones, the collections, I think they called them. So Kirkman had said he really admired that number and kind of wanted to reach that someday. So it felt like The Walking Dead was going to be that book. It was his biggest success, his best-selling book, that kind of thing. And I thought we were going to go there. And he had said before, also in other interviews, that The Walking Dead was Rick's story, but that didn't necessarily mean that Rick had to be in the story for the book to continue. So it's kind of like a hint to the readers, like, hey, Rick may die and we will continue, but it will still be about the things that Rick did or Rick built and seeing that storyline through. And that's definitely true for this last issue, because Rick has been dead for a long time, but there's a lot of talk in this issue about Rick as a father and Rick as a leader, and what Rick did for the world, at least on the East Coast, of setting it up for success. You no longer have walkers or roamers. Everything is like caged off. You're not really seeing zombies anywhere. The issue opens up with a zombie, fittingly. It's called The Walking Dead, but and it does revolve around one of these zombies entering the area where people haven't seen them for a long time, and the ramifications of Carl killing it, like he's done in every issue up until this one, and some other characters. I'm trying not to give it away, but I mean, it's not really like spoilerish because there's a big time jump. So, if the series were to continue after this, I would just tell you everything, I guess. But I want you to read it. It's a good issue. It's a good issue. You should read it yourself. And it kind of goes from there, and you see Michonne. You see what is it? What is that kid's name? Herschel, which is Maggie's kid. She's also there. So you see kind of like the final stage, the final evolution of all these different towns and stuff we've been following in the comic books. There's an east side and a west side now. They're about to join via a railroad that Eugene is building. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this book to kind of like give you a bigger picture of the world that we never really got, because it started out in Georgia, and then we went to Alexandria, which I'm assuming was Alexandria, Virginia, and then we were headed towards Chicago, I think was where the Commonwealth was. So haven't really gotten a bigger picture of like what the entire world is, unlike the TV shows are doing now with Fear the Walking Dead, and I think there's other spin-offs coming, but it's a good issue. It ends with Carl reminiscing on his dad, let's say, in a way that is really sweet and really nice, reading a storybook to his daughter about his dad, because his dad has now passed on into legend. He's like the George Washington of this new world, this person that's revered and respected and cared about and legendary. And it's to a point where the little kids now don't really know who he is, because they don't have to live that life. And that's always what like Rick was trying to build, was rebuild the world in a way that kids didn't have to deal with death all the time. So it's kind of the it's not really a climax to the Walking Dead story. It's more of a denouement, where it's like the tailing off of all the storylines and threads that have been set up, but in a way that's still satisfying. So it's a really good issue. And the back 4 pages, where it's just a letter from Kirkman to the fans, to his team, thanking everybody and explaining like, I did want to go this long, but I only had this ending in mind. And then when we got to the Whisperers, I knew that we were getting towards the ending, and he had kind of like, I can't remember if he said like he progressed too fast or he ran out of story, but it felt for him like he should end it here. And especially with a collaborator like Charlie Adlard, who was working in other comics before The Walking Dead and has only done The Walking Dead for the last, that book came out in 2006, so 13 years or so. You owe that guy a break if he's not. Surely he's well off already, but or stretch his legs artistically, or maybe he was getting itchy to do something else. But big 2 thumbs up, props to this team, to Robert Kirkman, to Tony Moore for creating it, to Charlie Adlard for doing a great job and cranking out every issue every month. Like I don't remember reading stories about The Walking Dead being late. I remember The Walking Dead just coming out consistently on a regular basis. So big ups to you, Charlie Adlard, for doing every issue starting from number 7. Congratulations. It is a momentous achievement to do that many issues of a book in a timely manner. Great job. Great job to Cliff Rathburn for doing all these gray tones. The book has had a consistent look and feel. Also, thanks to you for making the art on Charlie look really good. He's had a couple of inkers. He's also inked himself, Charlie. So congrats to you guys for the long-term inkers. I think Stefano Guidano was one of the ones mentioned in the back here. So congratulations to the team. It's a great book. It will live on famously, I think, as a monumental achievement in comics and also a damn good story to read. So if you have not read The Walking Dead in a while, pick up this last issue. If you haven't read The Walking Dead at all, pick up the trade, then pick up this issue. Or go through the compendiums and start all over again. Like I said, it's all on sale on Comixology right now. You can buy it all digitally if you want and read it that way and just plow through it, because these are issues you can plow through and read and keep on reading and keep wanting to read as you go on and on and on and on. So congratulations to the entire team. This book is like a 4 out of 5 star book. It's a good book. It's a great book. Definitely go out and pick it up if you can still find it. It was surprise solicited, which was like the weirdest thing. They put out fake solicitations for the next 3 months, and those covers are included in the back matter here. But when it showed up on Tuesday, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, this book is thicker than what it should be." It's 80 issues. It's square bound instead of like the floppy with the staple. So that it was a surprise ending that nobody knew was coming, and Kirkman kind of talks about that in the back matter, which you should read for yourself. So go pick up The Walking Dead number 193. It's a great ending to a great series with some great creators and some great characters. So thanks as always. Smash that like button, subscribe, comment down below, and I will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.